As a 3D supervisor, what are your best practices to keep artists aligned with a project's vision art style?
Oh, best practice to keep
Yeah, I
artists
guess,
aligned.
can we expand this to how do you deal with difficult artists? Like, that's a two-part question. So essentially, this would be a big question about team, team
Okay,
dynamics.
so how do you keep the general artists aligned, and then how do you deal with difficult artists, I
Yeah,
guess?
for sure. Yeah. So how do you keep everyone on the same page? And then how do you deal with people that deviate from the page?
Hmm. I think what I've learned over the years is what I say a lot. It's going to be context,
Yeah.
because every show is different, every asset is different, every team is different, every budget is different, every studio is different,
Yeah.
and you can have the same, like, let's say like you needed to make a giraffe, but you need to make a giraffe on a high budget film or a low budget film, or a film at ILM or a film at indie studio.
Yeah.
The way that you approach and making this is going to be very different, right? So being able to communicate this context relative to the end goal of that show, with that budget, with that team, and this supervisor. Maybe it's a difficult supervisor.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a very
exactly.
easygoing supervisor. Maybe it's a very conceptually sci-fi looking show, or maybe it's something that's very literal. It changes, that context changes everything, right?
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of artists that are working might not see this at at face value, right?
Yeah.
And I think when you're a leader or supervisor, it's important to try to communicate this as clean as possible, because it's important to separate yourself from the work, right?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people that work in the industry, like, they can take things very personally because it's quote unquote artistic, right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote or creative. But I think once you kind of like step back and just understand like what is the request from the client, and
Yeah.
how do we try to achieve it, and how can we provide the best context to get to that end goal for the client,
Yeah.
that's going to be like the best case scenario, I find.
For sure.
And I think after like a few iterations, like, people tend to get it.
Yeah.
But some of the like the difficult artists that I've
Oh,
worked with
can
like
I?
don't understand this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna kind of jump in and add to the fact that like another simple thing of like stepping back away from yourself is like even just simple thing of like presenting your work how the supervisor wants the work presented. Like
Hmm.
even if like you like to do a certain way, if the VFX supervisor requests it's this way, you have to do it right. And that's a
Yeah.
big part of stepping back from yourself and just doing what's required essentially.
Like, again, you can have like
It can be, yeah, the smallest thing, like just how you do your turntables.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just like, but that you'll only like the supervision side can probably get a better grasp of this, because
Yeah.
they're presented with these types of contexts and
Yeah,
bumps in the road more than the artist, right?
for sure.
But
Because
then
you're
because
seeing
the artist,
everyone, right?
yeah, exactly. And you're always talking with the supervisors and the other department supervisors,
Yeah.
but then the artists aren't talking to the other supervisors. The artists are, they're just working, right?
Yeah.
So if there's an absence of that context, of course they should react
Yeah.
in that way, right? They should
Yeah.
have maybe a difficult time trying to understand why the supervisor wants it done this way, or why the supervisor wants it this way, that doesn't align the way that the artist wants to do it.
Yeah.
Of course. So, but that's where, I guess I should come in, and to provide them context as to why they would like it this way,
For sure.
and why maybe the way that they're approaching it as the artist won't quite work in terms of trying to communicate what they're after.
And it
Right.
might not even be that the artists themselves are like wrong. It's more just to get everyone on the same page of what's expected for
Exactly.
this
And
specific context.
yeah, and they can get offended, because it might sound like it's maybe too harsh or something like that. And
Yeah.
that's where like you just have to, as a supervisor, you have to be careful, because everyone comes from different walks of life, and working in
Yeah.
this industry, everyone's from all over the globe. Like, I'm pretty sure there's like 10% Canadians in DNEG
Yeah, I know, right?
Vancouver. Everyone else is from everywhere else around the world, right?
Yeah.
So different walks of life, everyone grew up differently, different languages, like, yeah, like just like accents everywhere, like, you know what I mean? So it's like people are just different. And I think like being able to provide context to clarify is part of the job.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, communication is key for sure. Yeah.
So does helping to provide context also lead into how to deal with difficult people essentially?
For sure, because like if
If you can help them understand the situation.
Exactly. If you can only do your best to try to, alleviate the stress by giving them more context.
Yeah.
But if that's not enough, then you kind of have a problem here, right? So it's
Yeah.
like if you can't communicate, just
Yeah.
like remove the personalities out of the issue, or the names of these people out of the issue, the people out of the issue.
Yeah.
It comes down to this is what they would like.
For sure.
And if we can't get that or try to help them get to that point, then we're doing something wrong. And that's what's asked of us right now, is to helping the client get to this point.
Yeah. For sure.
So if the artist is having difficulties trying to understand that simple concept,
Yeah.
then it's not about the task. It's just about, probably something internally that the artist is dealing with. They
Yeah.
could be very stressed out that day. They could have something went on in their life, or something like that, or in that week, and they're not having a good week.
Mm.
And I can't assume that they're having the best week. So I have to do my best to try to, communicate what the client wants, as just like the first, this is our job, this is what we need to
Yeah.
do. But if that's difficult, then, I've had conversations with artists where it's just like, let's just like, put this down for a bit, like let's go grab a beer, or like, go for lunch, like
Yeah.
let's just talk, like, what's up, like what's stressing you out. And
For sure.
my supervisors before, when I was younger, like they would always do the same for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, because you never know what any single person is going through, right?
I think
So it's
also, yeah, this is why it's important to communicate if you do feel overwhelmed with the task, essentially.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it goes both ways, essentially.
yeah, for sure.
Because yeah, as a supervisor, there's no way you can know what every single artist is feeling on the show, right?
Exactly. And how could you?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So and subsequently enough, if a supervisor is also unable to communicate that, then it will just make things more difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because then they might be frustrated because they're trying to hit a deadline, but the artists are not able to hit the deadline, but then the artists are going through something difficult. So then it's like it's a give and take on both sides. It's not just like if the supervisor can communicate it, then they're fine. It's like, oh, is the artist okay to receive it and also elaborate and try to get past it, right?
Yeah, for sure.